What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Spencer, and welcome to an Anime Monday, or hopefully I'll have this up by today. Maybe there might be an Anime Monday on a Tuesday, who knows, but...
Squad going up!
I'm like, hey, what's up, hello?
I was thinking on the ride over here, you know how everybody has, like, names, like Jake Paul and all that? Should we have, like, the Blue Boys or something?
We're the Blue Milk Boys. That is the name.
Yeah. So if you guys subscribe, you are officially a Blue Milk Boy.
You are a Blue Milk Boy for sure.
Sure.
You can join the Blue Milk Army. I don't know.
I don't know if I'm gonna invest in that, but
What are we talking about today, Spence? On this Anime Monday,
we're talking about one of the craziest things I've ever seen. And that's Evangelion, the original anime that was released on Netflix last year. I mean, it's been out since before I was born, but became accessible to the masses about a year ago when the series was released. They released, obviously, the original airing and also the movie that came out afterwards that...
both of them, actually. Both of the... So, yeah, Neon Genesis Evangelion is what we're talking about today. I believe, yeah, Spencer's right. It came out around before both of us were born. We're in 1995.
I think it ended in 96, so that was a year before I was born.
Yeah, it definitely had like a rebirth in the West, as of late because of, it becoming available on Netflix now, because you really can't stream it anywhere else. You can't really get it on Funimation or anywhere like that. The one thing that does unify them is their anime. They have action. They cover these themes in kind of a fashion you would expect an anime to do, but yeah, it doesn't feel like it feels like we're watching, like, it's a super serialized. It's not really episodic in a sense that, like, not every action is connected to the main plot, but like every episode does address forward the main plot in some way. And so that's kind of a break for my experience in shonen, like a traditional shonen anime especially. They're very largely episodic.
Yeah, so what we hope to accomplish through this podcast is A, is this a classic? B, should it be known as a classic? And C, is it even worth watching if you've never seen it before? So I guess we can just kind of start exploring our thoughts on the show in general. The first thing is I view this more as art than I do an enjoyable show. There's so many serious themes, of course, and a lot of the scenes that you'll see throughout the entire series is these long, uncomfortable ones. Mm-hmm. That's not, you don't, like, you want to feel in some anime like anxious or like a little nervous if the main character is in danger, but the emotions that some of these episodes elicit go far beyond that. It's a totally different feeling of watching the show than you would be used to.
Usually in anime, I want to avoid like long takes like that because it kind of it's a stale, static image. And so, Anno takes the audience captive in a lot of these different moments, especially in just very, very uncomfortable or tense situations. And they really let that marinate, and you really kind of, I don't know, to whenever those scenes occurred for me, it kind of like forced me particularly to kind of think about like the mind space that each of the characters involved in that scene were like going through. So the elevator scene is probably the most it's the most infamous instance of this kind of take. And
I don't have Uno, so go fuck off. Everyone has Uno, dipshit. It came free with your fucking Xbox. I didn't get it. I have the oldest Xbox known to man.
Elevator, and Asuka is basically just kind of going off about how Rei doesn't, demonstrate any free will and stuff like that, and how that, it doesn't align with her own moral code. And there's just this really incredibly long, palpable silence that really lets their differing kind of viewpoints of life and one another, it really lets it marinate and really kind of allows you to, I think, get a better perspective on both of these characters. So a lot of people don't like that stuff, and they thought it was like a weird kind of experimental thing that didn't work out for them. But for me, I think those worked really well as far as kind of, endearing yourself to the characters a little more.
That's the style of this show too. The first time it happens, you're like, wow, is that weird? And you're like, yeah, that was weird. But the fact that they do it 4 or 5 times, at any given point,
You're definitely supposed to like
It's
at
an
that
art
point.
format,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's something you're supposed to be gathering from that. Yeah.
The artist wants you to do that, and if you guys don't know, and this will also have spoilers. So if you guys haven't seen it, first go watch it because I don't want to tell you guys anything about this show more than what we've said now.
So yeah, answering Spencer's question of should you watch Ava, most definitely, we both recommend.
Yeah, we can get that out of the question.
We
can
both
get that out pretty fit.
we both definitely recommend that you should watch Ava. Would you say it's a classic?
This, I'm gonna sound.
Would you agree with the masses who say it's a classic? Because I think that Ava's reputation is that of like kind of one of the foundational like building blocks of the modern anime landscape right now.
I'm gonna say this is not a classic.
Yo, you're bugging.
I'm gonna say this is something that you can't call classic. This
Why?
is something that
Interesting.
I view this anime more on the level of Starry Night than I do being the foundation for JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and you can name any other show that.
So like this should be in like the Criterion collection. It shouldn't be. We shouldn't be talking about Ava with other anime.
I know we don't talk
We
about.
should be talking about it up with like other pieces of like high art.
Like Van Gogh and all that kind of stuff. I know. Look, I sound like a weeb, and of course I'm willing to accept that. I just really think that the show wants you to not think of it in that same frame. It's like this is a story, and it wants you to feel a certain way, and the only way that the author felt that they could do that was through this visual medium. And as you go later into the show, I don't think there was any other way that you could show this. Maybe a painting, sure, but a painting doesn't have that much impact when you know the context of where it came from. Sometimes a painting is everything, right? Because Starry Night, the guy was in a psych ward looking upon the city, and that was just interpretation. So besides the fact that there was no technology from at the time, I still feel like the painting was the way for him to convey that, and it produced one of the greatest things I think ever made by another human being. And on this, it's about the human experience. I mean, what it means to feel, to love, to hate, to be depressed, all those kinds of themes. And that's just, again, very unique about the show, and why I would not say it's a classic anime. It's something else.
Yeah, I think definitely this is kind of one of the achievements that we've kind of seen in the medium. Like it is an anime at the end of the day.
Sure, yeah.
So like it is probably I would say probably anime's greatest achievement. It changed my life really. Like I was for a really long time like I haven't been doing as much of the content and stuff like that, and I've been really I was really depressed, and 2020 like it was for millions of other people was really, really tough for me. And so a lot of the subject matter of Ava spoke to me on a really personal level and was able to kind of help me change my perspective a little bit. And so I think that combined with, again, the show is incredibly well written and smart and tackles the subjects like Spencer said: loneliness, hate, love, sex, maturity, all of these things that are very real for people to grapple with. And if I feel like if people are listening and are paying attention, can really find pretty much anyone can watch the show and take something away from it. We've all felt broken at points in our lives, and have always kind of felt like the creeping nihilism. And I think that no one person or entity or anything has all the answers for these kinds of questions, but Ava sets out to profoundly and authentically answer as many of them as it can, and I think that is what really sets it apart, is that it is that there's so much of it's so firmly rooted in the anti-escapism. You're not supposed to watch this anime to escape from your real life. You are supposed to watch this to try and understand how to deal with your real life, and so that is patently different than most of the anime we see today. And it's unfortunate that, the more I read about the historical context of Ava and how it was released and how it was received at the time and stuff like that, it makes me a little disappointed to know that, the original ending was so, it was so poorly received. Because, for me, we went a alternative route watching it. We went through the first 24 episodes and then watched End of Evangelion, the movie, and then went back and watched the last 2 episodes. I'm not sure which of the experiences would have been better for us if we had just gone through the original series then watched End of Ava, but I think the way we were able to consume it, I think ending it with this optimistic ending of understanding, you know, your life is yours, and it's one of the reasons that we were excited to talk about Mob Psycho. It tackles that concept really well also. But yeah, like leaving out on this high note that yeah, in your head you can be whoever it is that like you are satisfied with, but at the same time there is still a real world out there with real world consequences, and that's what we see at End of Eva. And so I think that is a really good kind of, you know, nuanced message to try and give people. And for me, it hit really well, and I think it's starting to kind of, people are understanding it more, you know, with hindsight and all of that, obviously. But it's a classic for me. I'll never go a day, I think, in the rest of my life without thinking about this show.
The first thing I want to say too, because I have my audience, as long as those metrics are true, I don't have anybody below 18 watching my videos. I would not watch this until you are at least 22 years old.
Yeah.
And I mean that seriously, because you're going to take away some... I think it would even be better if I watched this when I was 35 years old. I think the longer you wait to watch this, the more meaning the show will have to you. It will leave you astonished by the end of it, where you're just like, I just want to consume as much content about this as humanly possible, and I don't even know what answers I'm looking for. And also, I quickly wanted to say, too, is visually... this show is just bonkers. I mean,
its own, the style, the way the Evas are drawn, all of that stuff.
And then the movie obviously just ramps it up to 50 billion quadrillion thousand.
The religious imagery, all of that stuff is really, really cool, and I think adds a really, really like unique air of drama to the show.
Yeah, and I think what makes this anime so different than the others as well is when you leave the show, you're not supposed to feel vindicated. You're not supposed to even feel sad or angry or upset. It's supposed to just literally make you think about it as much as possible and to try to process what you just saw.
To find really your own meaning in it, you know?
People view the endings of these
exactly, I was gonna say.
Some people think that the ending of the anime and the movie
are just
have nothing to do
separate,
together.
Yeah.
Some people think they're different sides of the same coin.
Some think it's a course correction.
Some people think the end of the movie is really bad, and it was like the bad ending. And some people
it's
think
supposed to be like a pessimistic, hopeless ending. Yeah, and that's why in response to your advice that you should wait to watch this. It really depends. It really depends on other, like, you know, it depends on what you've experienced in your life. Yeah, sometimes the stuff is going to make less sense to you if you haven't experienced the kind of things that the characters experience, because, you know, trauma and loneliness and all of that stuff, it really shifts your perspective on life. And so, you know, maybe if you have been feeling lonely, if you have been feeling, you know, if you've been having issues with your self-worth and stuff like that, and I think that those are really concepts that Eva nails, like as far as just helping people to understand these very difficult and ambiguous things.
It's actually fascinating. Just, you cannot think about the movie unless you think about the context in which it was made too. I really do fully believe that if he had all the funding in the world and all the time, that the ending of the anime would not have been nearly as intense, I guess you could say, as the movie. I don't really know what he envisioned it to be. I think he was very happy with the way the anime. I think he's like, this is, like, I was going through a lot of depression, and this was kind of my resolve within myself that showed up in this story. And then you have that time skip, right, where you have death threats going on, people are threatening him.
Two-year span of time between the end of the series and before End of Evangelion comes out, and so there's a lot of time for people's negative reactions to stew around.
He changed personally, like, you know, like I don't know how many years passed between that, but clearly he was not writing the story in the same frame of mind when he was making the movie as when he was writing the original story.
Because the End of Evangelion is brutal and angry. It's a very angry film. Like the tone of it is just very sad and resentful, I feel like, almost. It treats the characters incredibly brutally, and I think that was more of a message of, like, this is why I think that more in the same school of thought as you when it comes to the endings, is that they're more of they're two sides of the same coin. Because, you know, just because End of Eva was a cathartic release, it was like a Ano saying, if I couldn't explain it to you in terms that would make you feel better about yourself, I'm going to scare you into believing what I was trying, like into the point I was trying to make. And essentially that's what happened. Asuka, God rest her soul, or God continue to bless her soul, because I think she's alive now.
She is, yeah.
Got absolutely desecrated, dude.
Yeah.
It was shocking for me to watch, dude. We watched it and my mouth was agape the entire time. I couldn't handle it. There was like rage in filmmaking, man. Like, that's, if you could like express feeling like that, the feeling I walk away from End of Eva with is rage. Like, he was trying to, it felt like the kind of frustrated outburst of someone who was trying really hard to make people understand and they refused, you know?
Yeah, and which really makes the ending even more beautiful, because he says, see all this harsh, horrible shit that I can conjure up and that you guys were kind of asking for? That's not me ultimately. I'm not there in that part of my life anymore. I'm not as depressed as I was during, the first, let's say 15 episodes when he really was feeling that. He says, this is what the path I could have gone down. Mm-hmm. And then it just ends with, I see you guys, and I don't want to cuss, but F you, because at the end of all, I'm still got out of this better. And, I think that's what makes the ending scene where he chokes her and she caresses his cheek just just a masterpiece, because that's not what when you're watching the scene, you're like, holy crap, like, he did not choose instrumentality. He wants humankind to survive. That's a huge decision.
But he is still like subject to the real world consequences, this real world emotions. Like, the emotions, like, just because Shinji has moments of self-actualization and realizing that like his life is not this manifested thing that has to be just straight suffering for his entire life, like, it can be this other thing. But even when you accept that about yourself, which I think will be the key to making people happier, even when you accept that about yourself, there's still the real world that you have to try and find a place in. And so that's what the ending of End of Eva means to me personally.
Yeah, and I just like how it zags so hard. I was like, what is going on? And then it forces you to answer the question of, what was the ending all about? Was he just trying to see if she was still alive? Is it just, he just got out of fucking heaven, or whatever you want to call it, like infiniteness.
He literally got the weight of the wrath of God on his little 14-year-old body.
He brought down the force of God on his 10-year-old little boy wrist.
Both of them had a conflict within it. Like, everyone's souls was intertwined, and there was that part where she confronts him. It's like, you don't actually care about me. I think that was supposed to be her soul. I don't think that was supposed to be his interpretation. It was like well, now we're talking about our interpretations of it. You may feel completely different about this. You may think that scene was just in his mind and not a conversation. To me, it was like they're both inside this thing already. Like, they're both dead, alive. They're all the same. But I think it was these two characters truly confronting each other in a realm that has no consequences, where she's just like, you're a fucked up dude. Like, screw you.
It is, yeah.
And he chokes her, and, when they see each other back on the beach, that beef that they were stewing inside the infiniteness, it was still going on. And of course, when she caresses her cheek, you're like, man, that is just,
she still makes the choice.
Holy crap. Like, she obviously says disgusting because of the horrible thing he did to her when she was in comatose, but she still probably loves him at the end of it too, because Evangelion is about the suffering of life, but how beautiful it makes it when you're not suffering.
Yeah, like I said, that was the biggest lesson I came away with the show with, is just like, suffering is innate. Like, to live is to suffer, and it doesn't, despite that, life is still worth living. Like, it's the suffering, it can give weight to the moments in your life that are happy, or that actually means something to you. So I think that's a really, if we're talking about responsible storytelling, which has been an inside joke for us the past week or so, if we're talking about responsible storytelling, I think that's, in a really kind of fucked up way, in a really kind of messed up way, it does kind of teach the audience a responsible lesson, like a lesson that they should really kind of take with them. It is masked in tons of really brutal violence and sex and just really kind of disturbing and graphic content, but at the end of it, like that message is pure and it's never compromised, and I think they did an incredible job.
And also, it is beautiful too at the end of it as well, that I'm actually glad that the conclusion of the story is not like, whoop-de-doo, like we're all back to normal now. It's like, no, like everything that you've done in your life has consequences now. The consequences of Shinji's decisions was Earth is essentially decimated, and we don't really know what the future of it's going to be, because that's where the story ends, and that's kind of where your imagination starts to take over. But what I got from it is that human life is not over. People can assumingly return back to her body because, you know,
they can. My assumption of it is that everyone can make the same choice that Shinji and Asuka made.
Yeah.
And whether or not they want to return to the mortal coil or not is up to them. But yeah, maybe we'll definitely come back when we watch all the Rebuild movies,
right,
and see if that ending was any more definitive than if the third time is the charm for Eva.
I do not want there to be anything after his original vision. I don't want there to ever be the end of Evangelion, the new beginning or something, you know, where they just like, all right, let's just pick up right where the beach scene left off and let's see what happens to the rest of it.
That
would just be
if
awful.
you're not, if they're gonna do anything like doing it like they are right
just
now,
make an alternate timeline.
It's an alternate timeline or something like that, or they're retelling the events in a different way or something like that. That's fine, to where I have a different kind of frame of mind. But like that, the original Evangelion story, beginning with, you know, the first episode of Neon Genesis, all the way to end of Evangelion, is a masterpiece in my opinion.
Yeah, so I guess we can kind of just wrap up our thoughts. Like, what are your final thoughts on the show? How do you even wrap this up, and how do you talk about it in some sort of closing thought?
GOAT stuff, man. I don't think there's ever gonna be, like I said, I don't think there's ever gonna be a day for the rest of my life where I don't think about something from this show.
And you just have to appreciate having something that you can't seek this out on Google, like the way it makes you think. You may not even like it. Like, sure, you can probably go that way, but at the very least, when you finish a show, you will be thinking about it.
It's thought-provoking. It's a thought-provoking show.
Beyond, I have not had that much of a thought-provoking experience since, like, I visited concentration camps, you know, like, where it's just, it changes the way that you perceive things. And of course, we sound like we're otakus and everything now, but if you have not seen the show and you were going to watch it, you will feel the same way. Or if you did, you probably felt the same way too. Maybe not for as long as me, like I did. It was probably like 2 days after where I'm like, all right, I can't think about this too much or my head's gonna explode. But
hey man, I'm a proud Eva snob. I don't care if you guys think I'm a weeb.
Yeah, so that's what it came down to. That was our podcast in Evangelion. Let me know what you guys think about this. I don't know if it's I guess it is a little controversial, but how do you feel about it in context? Do you think
Eva is definitely controversial for sure? Like it has sparked controversies for decades now.
Yeah. So let us know how what ending do you think is true? Do you think they're both two sides of the same coin? How do you feel about the expanded universe that it now exists, like Detective Shinji and all that kind of stuff? But yeah, that's going to do it for another episode of Anime Monday. And we'll see you next time, guys. Thank you for all the support for this alternative content. We appreciate it.